live. Welcome back, everyone, to the W Sports Podcast. Recording, not live this time. We're going to release it like it's live, but every Monday at 6:30. So thank you all for joining us this week with our podcast. Tubby and myself here are kind of pre-recorded because I'm traveling. That's going to happen. But Tubby, can you believe what happened in the big game?
I can't believe that one player did that one thing. It's
Dude,
crazy.
everybody's talking about it.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what happens. But welcome back to the show, Tubby. Man, it feels good. It feels almost like it's because of when we're pre-recording this episode for that's released today. That it feels good because we recorded so recently. So I feel real energized about it. I don't know about you. How do you feel?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, anytime we're talking college football, especially this one, I'm juiced, ready to go. And yeah, like I said, feels like just yesterday that we recorded. Now we're here again. Yeah. And then just in a few short days, we're going to be recording again. So, hey.
We will be recording in the future for the past. Oh, man. I don't know. There's some X-Men on that one right there. I'm telling you. Days of Future Past is that's what I should call this episode when I title it for the release. Days of Future Past. I'm going to go ahead and write that down.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, today's episode, the main goal of it is to really take a look at the college football landscape. Believe it or not, what's crazy is as this is released, we're a quarter of the way through the college football season. So, Tubby and myself, we are going to do some fact or fiction as we look at some of the big storylines, some of the little details, but we're going to go through college football. So, we hope you join us. I know put your comments in the chat. We will be sure to reply. I don't know why I said describe, but we will be sure to reply to those because we want to know what you think of fact or fiction on these two. So join in the chat. That's what will make this so much fun. So, Tabby, how you feeling? You feeling ready? Feeling good to go?
I'm ready.
Fiction?
Oh, yeah. I'm ready. There's a couple of these I was torn on, answer-wise. But, yeah.
Okay. Well, so back in like high school and stuff like that, when we did tests and you had true or false or multiple choice, which did you prefer?
Oh, I always multiple choice.
100%, because this is true or false almost, fact or fiction. So there's yes or no. So maybe we need to do. Should we have? I don't know yet. Well, you put
could
the
happen later. Yeah,
it could have been either.
Yeah.
We should have one of those in betweeners, but we'll see. We'll see. So, all right. So we are gonna. I think we should start off with this question: fact or fiction, because it's been so prevalent in the media through the first couple of weeks, and it's still gonna continue on. College Game Day has been with this conference the last 2 weeks. I mean, week 3 we talked about it. It's in Boulder because there's nobody playing anybody this week, but at the end of this season, the Pac-12 will be known as the strongest conference, top to bottom.
See, this is one of the ones that I struggled with because I look at the conference and I think there's a couple teams that are overinflated just based off of, I think some of these teams are getting a lot of hype right now early on. Like by the end of the season, I think USC has 3 losses, 3 or 4 losses, and they'll be closer to the bottom of the top 25. And I feel the same way with Colorado. I think Colorado now,
they're not going.
Yeah,
come on, you guys.
Yeah, I mean, you play Colorado State this week, then you got Oregon and USC, the following 2 weeks. That's more than likely should be 2 losses. Who knows? Yeah, but the bottom part of this conference is just abysmal. I mean, Arizona State, Cal, just
Stanford. Let's get
Stanford, yeah. But the top half is, I think, pretty solid. And so you always look at the SEC, and the SEC is the one conference that everyone's like, yeah, that's the best conference. And you know what? This year, I don't know if that's the case.
I think I agree with you on that one. And here's what I see: the Pac-12 is the snapshot this year, and it bleeds in from last year too. So, but the main thing that I'm seeing this year is the quarterbacks might have the best quarterback conference right now, which is, I think, is driving a lot of this. This is my biggest caveat with UCLA this year is they had it last year. They don't right now. Kelly's still trying to figure out, who is the guy. And even if that guy he chooses, if he has a cold streak, will he switch back? So my thought is the Pac-12 reminds me a lot of the Big 12 back when they had the best quarterbacks. Yes, there are the teams that are just not good. But because of this is a quarterback-driven league, I think at the end of the year, people could say that yes, the Pac-12 is the strongest overall conference. I mean, we're seeing it right now. Was it 16, 8 teams in the top 25? So at least that's there. Now they're going to beat up on each other, and it just matters on is there one or two teams that are going to rise above the rest and beat everybody else up, or are they just going to knock each other around? The good news is not everybody has to play everybody in the Pac-12 this year. They're not in divisions and stuff like that, so there's some randomness to the schedule, but I think there's a strong chance at the end of the year they will be. Because in the Big Ten, what I look at is I look at three real teams that are going to be in the conversation. Maybe a fourth will sneak in there, like a Wisconsin, if they get on a really strong run. But honestly, I think they're so top heavy with the 1 and 2 and 3 that it's just not going to be the same. So I'm agreeing with you, though. I think USC, Colorado, Utah, all these teams, none of them are going to go undefeated in this league. I think they're all going to beat each other up, but I still think that'll help them.
Yeah, it's just you look at the SEC, you always have the two constants, Alabama and Georgia. Well, you got Georgia. We're not sure about Alabama right now. That loss to Texas, yeah, Texas is a good team, but it's Alabama. The identity of Alabama has always been the offensive line and the defense. And and even quarterback play over the last 4 or 5 years, and it hasn't been the case this year. And I as this coming out, I'm sure probably will happen. I've hearing that this weekend with the 16th, Saturday, that Tyler Buckner's probably going to take over for Jaden Miller, starting quarterback against South Florida. So that right there is already telling you they're in flux with quarterbacks. I mean, they have 4 guys that they were considering for the job, and then I just think the rest of the SEC. I thought highly of LSU, and I still think that they can figure things out and be a good competitive team in the SEC. But I don't know if Tennessee's on that same wavelength that they were last year. And the rest of the other teams, I think Missouri's nothing. A&M, you've already got a big you already lost. Arkansas. I mean, Florida, we've seen Florida, they're already in disarray this year. So
Kentucky, yeah, it really is a lot of muddiness in the SEC. Maybe that's just because it's so humid down there that the field is just muddy. But
it's not a lot of clarity from to start the season for the SEC.
I'm saying fact, right? Are you saying fact about the Pac-12?
Yeah, I'm saying fact that by the end of the year, I believe that, and it's because the thing is you can maybe single out 4 teams in the Pac-12 that you go, okay, they're not good, but then the rest of the other teams, Wazoo, Washington State,
Oregon State,
they are a good team. Oregon State is a good team. Then you got Oregon, Washington, Utah, USC, Colorado. I still think, I mean, I'm not big on Colorado. I still think they'll end up with 6 or 7 losses, but I think that they'll be more competitive than I expected in a lot of these big games that they're playing this year. So, yeah, I think that you look at it, especially like you said, quarterback play drives football nowadays, and you've got 4 or 5 guys in that conference that are, at least top 50 quarterbacks. That speaks a lot to your conference.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's a big shocker. None of us had that at the beginning of the year. And there's been a lot of just sprinting out of the gate for the Pac-12. That's good for them, despite the conference essentially bye-bye after this year. But the SEC, we're going to jump to that question real quick. The SEC conference has come back to the field. Now, we've already alluded to this a little bit, but I think about this one over the next couple of years. It is going to change just with the addition of 2 more teams, Texas and Oklahoma. And Texas already made a pretty big statement of beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And then Oklahoma is going to have that opportunity to join next year. And they're having a really strong recruiting class, just like Texas is. And so when we frame this question, come back to the field, it is with a quick focus, a quick look, at just this season, but you're also a deep shot down the field 6 years from now, 4 years from now. Do we feel like it's not the SEC and then Big Ten and then everybody else? It's, hey, we're all almost in this big chunk right here. There's a lot more parity, and they could, just because you're going to play a game in, Baton Rouge doesn't mean that you're going to get blown out by 40 because of the crowd and the team and the physicality. People are even out.
Yeah. This was the other one, that I was struggling with, because I want to say fact, but then again, the more I look at it, I think a big part of what people aren't looking at when you got these Pac-12 teams leaving and going to the Big Ten is that, man, they're going to have to play a lot of games on the Central and Eastern time
Mhm.
zones. And say you're USC and you have to get up and go to Penn State for an 11 o'clock
Big noon.
game. You're looking at what 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock Western time compared to so
Yeah.
you're 2 or 3 hours difference there that it's going to be a big difference. And I don't know what USC is going to look like going forward. I don't believe UCLA will be a big addition to this conference. Yeah, name wise, yeah, that holds a lot. But when we're talking college football, I just don't see them being a big addition. Oregon and Washington, I think that changes a little bit more, but I'm still going to go with the SEC being that they're still just a leg ahead of everyone still, even down the road, because I feel like the addition of Oklahoma, yeah, even though Texas, we're not quite sure are they pretenders or they contenders right now, and can Sark keep this momentum going towards the next couple of
Mhm.
years. But I still feel like that there's a lot down in the SEC compared to what I feel like there could be some drop off up in the Big Ten. What happens if Jim Harbaugh leaves?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think
Michigan's
also the Big 12 it takes a step back losing.
yeah,
I just don't think it's
and
gonna be the same. So, to me, this is like boxing. Like, there's a heavyweight champ right now. Until someone knocks him out, they're still the champ. Who
yeah,
won the last two national championships? The SEC did, and they wasn't even close last year. So I think about that. I think about yes, this is not the same that we've seen maybe from Alabama in the past. LSU is still trying to figure things out. This is still until you're knocked off the championship seat that then you're still going to have it. You're still going to have the title belt. But I think the opportunity is there for some of these teams. I think the Big Ten is the closest. The Pac-12 has this year, and then they're done.
yeah,
It's not going to be the same. And again next year with the Big 12, with the 16 teams that'll be in there, how many of those are legitimate playoff contending opportunity teams that you look at on paper and you're like, these guys have the athletes, they have the coaching. Like, do they have both? Because you're going to need both for any
yeah.
conference.
I mean, yeah, you kind of hit it there. Like Colorado, they're going to be in a weird situation next year based off the fact that if Shador Sanders keeps playing like he is, he's going to be a lock first round pick. And there goes your quarterback.
Mhm.
And right now, you don't have a quarterback in waiting that can take over for him in the future. So, can they get someone in the transfer portal, or can they sway one of these big time 5-star quarterbacks and maybe Coach Prime can build them up. I think the Big 12 is going to be a little, suspect next year. I don't see a lot for them. And the same thing with the ACC. You'll have a lot of questions for the ACC next year.
Mhm.
What can Florida State do once Jordan Travis moves on? What can Miami do once Tyler Van Dyke moves on?
Mhm.
So I think, like you said, until someone can beat the SEC, SEC is still the king, and I still think there's a decent gap between them, because I don't know if there's a whole lot going forward to get super excited about. Maybe in the Big Ten, maybe Drew Aller, Penn State, but I don't like James Franklin as a head coach.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think there's too many questions with the big teams in the Big Ten compared to what we can see Kirby Smart and these guys constantly do down in the SEC.
Yeah, I think that's great. So let's move over to a conversation about the ACC. Then this is probably the most overlooked Power Five conference, I think, across media. And what's
Mhm.
crazy is that's on the East Coast, and that's typically where most of the media goes. But for this conference, they have absolutely, I'm going to say, not necessarily been disrespected, but they've definitely been neglected. And they have some really strong teams. Obviously, Clemson, most people think of, even though they struggled a little bit this year, and then maybe they're gaining some more momentum as they really head into true conference season. But Florida State, Miami, is this really a real Miami team, or are we just seeing what we usually see from Miami? Is a lot of hype, and was the win over Texas A&M just because they were playing Texas A&M, stuff like that. And I know that at this point this is kind of old news, so bear with me here.
Yeah,
But is this a Florida State Miami? Is this legitimate?
I think it is. I don't. I picked Clemson to be in the playoffs this year, and they when I saw that first game, and yeah, things can change. throughout the season and they can get better. But the playmakers on the outside worried me a lot. And the play calling, just the whole offensive scheme was scary. And Miami, I thought Miami last year had a chance to be something better, but the playmakers didn't show up and absolutely let Tyler Van Dyke down. And he was basically a lone man out there trying to will his team to a win. This year, you've got guys out there that are making plays. The run game, the defense isn't great, but your offense is way better than it was. And we've already seen Tyler Van Dyke, I think, take a huge step forward this year because you talk, oh well, they just beat Texas A&M. Well, last year they lost to Texas A&M. So I think that maybe we're seeing Miami come back up a little bit, and I think it's a great thing for college football. You have Florida State and Miami both right now ranked in the top 25, both looking good. Something we haven't had in 20 years. An exciting, possibly exciting matchup between Florida State and Miami at some point in the ACC. I think is great for college football because you really miss some of these rivalries that have kind of died off. I mean, yeah, we're in Oklahoma, or we're from Oklahoma. OU Texas is always big, but on a national scale, it's kind of been a little meh because Texas has been
not as good.
Very disappointing. Well, you got a big Texas team, you got Oklahoma, so I think Florida State being and Miami both being good is great for college football. And I think really, these are the top two teams in the ACC, and I don't know if there's another team. I don't trust Clemson at all this year, and the Duke thing was a fluke.
It definitely was a fluke. It was, hey, conference game at home to start the season.
Monday night.
Yeah, a weird game too, the way it all laid out. But I think the other team, North Carolina, I think a lot of people, do you believe in North Carolina or not? Drake May just bet. I don't know that they have the complete team, but they have, a really good quarterback overall. So
you almost lost to Appalachian State again.
Yeah, no, you're right. App State, though, they're sneaky.
But App State lost like 3 or 4 of their good starters on the offense, and I thought this one should have been a blowout. And then Drake May doesn't even, get in the end zone in that game. Yeah, the run game absolutely dominated. But, I don't know. That game spoke a lot to me about what I think North Carolina could do. I just don't think that they have the guys.
Yeah. They remind me a lot of like a Purdue, like last couple of years with Aiden O'Connell. Like, we got a good quarterback, but I don't know that we're actually going to get over 8-4.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, they got to play for a Big Ten championship last year.
It's true. They did.
Yeah. I was going for them. They didn't win, obviously. But
yeah.
All right. So we're sticking with the ACC right now, and we're going to talk, can Florida State legitimately compete for a college football playoff? Let's say it all goes well. Do you think that they can, right now, as it stands, as we record this pre-recorded episode, there is one team from every Power 5 conference in the top 5. Never happened before. So ACC has one, Pac-12, Big 12, Big 10, and SEC all have a top team in top 5, which is wild. So can Florida State get there?
I'd say fact. I think
absolutely.
This schedule sets up so easy for them that if they can get over the Clemson hurdle, it should be smooth sailing from there. And they should almost at this point, as long as Jordan Travis stays healthy, should be a mortal lock for a playoff team because, like I said, that schedule is so easy. You got Clemson, and we've seen Clemson, if it's anything like the Clemson from week 1, or even the Clemson from the first half of the, Charlotte Southern game, whatever it was, Charleston Southern, that's who it was. And if that's anything like that, they should cakewalk. It should be a cakewalk over Clemson. And then I don't, possibly get Miami in the conference championship game, maybe their biggest competition. But man, that schedule, it should be really easy for them to make to the playoffs, especially with the way that offense is going. Yeah, their defense, we haven't got to see if it's, really legit or not, but I don't know if we will at all this year until the playoffs.
But, yeah. I mean, you're not kidding about like up until Miami, I mean, they do have Duke, but I think we can agree like we don't necessarily
Yeah.
believe in Duke full circle here. But they have Miami at home in the regular season, and they'll end at Florida, which is tough. It's the end of the season, and could things injuries could happen, but they're starting today with against Boston College in conference play, so you're going to get should be a pretty simple win for them. I think this Florida State team absolutely should have what it takes to put themselves in position to like, hey, win and you're in. Hey, you've earned it.
Yeah.
Especially with Miami looking like a better team. Now, if Miami stumbles and all the win and Duke stumbles, and then all of the games don't look good except the LSU win, then that can hurt if they lose a game or two. But I think this definitely has the potential there. It's just a crazy conference to think like Virginia right now. They're in. As we record this podcast, it is not looking good right now. They have a true freshman who was playing yesterday in the game and just making some true freshman mistakes. But it's a conference in transition right now. So I think the ACC desperately needs Florida State to compete. And like you said, Miami to be up and coming, because Clemson right now is still trying to figure it out. They're going through some growing pains too, or stretching pains.
Yeah. There's something going on there. I don't know what it is, but they better figure it out or they're going to get left behind.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go fact or fiction, because earlier you, in the preseason, you had predicted your Heisman candidate hopeful. And so far, I mean, we're not even really into conference play, so you don't have to stress about it right now. But there is a new candidate that seems to be on the radar right now, and it's still with Florida State. It's Travis Hunter, or not Travis Hunter. I was going to say Jordan Travis, and then also throw in Travis Hunter. So which one of these fact or fiction has the better case end of the year? What do you think?
Oh, it's back to Jordan Travis. As much as I would like to see Travis Hunter get into this, I just don't know if he will do enough offensively to put his name in there. And then it's just so hard for someone other than a quarterback to win.
It is.
And for him to be mainly he has played to how many different, in 2 games played 300 and some snaps. So, I mean, that's impressive in itself. And maybe that keeps him more relevant than some guys. I mean, we've only had one defensive player ever win. It was Charles Woodson. And honestly, you look at those numbers, and they weren't, spectacular. I mean, they were good numbers, but
yeah.
So maybe he doesn't have to do as much. But I think in today's day, the quarterbacks put up such big numbers every year, except for maybe the year Devontae, Smith wins, that it's kind of hard for someone other than a quarterback to win unless a running back goes for like 2,500 yards and 20 touchdowns, some absurd numbers. So I think Jordan Travis has the way easier chance, but I'd like to see Travis Hunter there. I think it'd be cool to see someone that get recognized for what they're doing, because it's really something we haven't seen in a long time. I mean, first game played 150 some snaps, the next game plays 130 some snaps. I mean,
yeah, and let's
insane.
Let's put that in perspective. He played 100 plus snaps, 130 some snaps in Dallas in the summer. Then he goes to Mile High, altitude, and plays more than 100. And I was like, both of those are equally impressive. Both of those have got to be ridiculously hard. I think the one thing that would help him, Hunter, to have his real case, Travis Hunter have his full case, is he's got to get a bunch of end zone, got to get a bunch of touchdowns. If he can do that, or have some pick sixes, stuff like that, have those moments, kind of like what we talked about before last time someone won it, then I think that can help him have those big moments if they beat USC, if they really make a challenge at the Pac-12, which I don't think they necessarily will. I think they're going to be good and competitive this year, but I don't think they're conference champions yet. I think that would be, that would be such a great story, and it would help, I think, open up the field. Like we've seen this in in other sports where people are like, oh, you can pitch and hit, right? Oh, we'll go ahead and let you play, more snaps. Oh, look, you can be okay at this. You can, if you're really, really good, you're an incredible athlete, then go for it. So I hope so. I do think Jordan Travis has a legitimate chance. I would say fact. I'm going to say fiction as well. Wait, Jordan Travis. Okay, I'm getting their names going back and forth here. Fact for him, I think it is slightly fiction for Travis Hunter to be a Heisman candidate, but for the things you said. And I think that sucks.
Yeah, and like I said, if he can find the end zone more offensively and, maybe a couple defensive touchdowns and more interceptions, I think he legitimately would have a chance. But, I mean, already you look at the game against Nebraska, and it was 3 catches for 70 yards. That's going to be hard to make up, already right off the top of the season. I mean, you look at the numbers Devontae Smith put up. I mean, that year he won, you're already well behind what he did to win that Heisman Trophy. So I think it's too much of an uphill battle for him. As much as I think it would be awesome to see someone get the rightful recognition that he deserves with playing both sides as much as he has. It's something that, and the thing is like he's not just playing both sides; he's playing both sides extremely well.
Extremely well, and not like, oh, we're gonna give him 20 snaps on defense and
Yeah,
put him in specific spot. Nope, it's not a
every
package.
snap.
It's just go out there, play, or get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I hope he does. We should have T-shirts made that say, "I am for defensive Heisman's."
Yeah,
Better
definitely.
representation, defensive Heisman's.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if anything, he definitely maybe if they can win enough games. That's another factor I think is kind of dumb when it comes to the Heisman is that they factor in win and loss for certain some players. I mean, okay, if you're the running back and you're going to factor in win and loss for him, I mean he's not the quarterback. He can't do everything that way. And same thing for Travis Hunter. He plays both ways. He's doing his fair share, but if they lose 4 or 5 games, he's automatic, or even 3 games, you're basically done when it comes
Yeah,
to Heisman.
yeah, definitely not a legitimate chance. Like you may get invited
Yeah,
because of the storyline. Oh, it's cool, but like
yeah,
we know that you're not getting more than a handful of first place votes, and you need a bunch of those. So
yeah.
all right, so we're going to stick with the college football playoff talk a little bit here. Colorado, USC make a run at the college football playoff despite defensive struggles. Now, we've seen this in the past with teams, including Oklahoma, not good at defense. TCU wasn't great. I mean, they were good at defense, but they were not a great defense. Last year still made it all the way to the championship. So, fact, both teams will have legitimate cases or fiction.
It's fiction. I mean, maybe if all the years do it, I think this would be their best chance because I just don't see really a super top heavy, 4, 5, 6 teams. Maybe this is the year that a team like this would legitimately have a good chance. But I mean, you've got USC that's ranked 83rd in total defense right now, and they played an absolute cupcake schedule. You haven't got anywhere close to the meat of the schedule. And then you're 91st in run defense already. Colorado, you're 111th in total defense and 125th out of 132 teams in run defense.
Yeah,
That just don't you don't have enough defense. And same, you had a tough week 1 matchup, but then again, for Colorado against TCU, but then you gave up 200 some yards rushing to a Nebraska offense that was absolutely anemic against Minnesota. So I just don't think that their defenses will be enough because you've got to play Oregon, and your Colorado, you got to play USC, and USC, you got to play Oregon, Washington, Utah, and Notre Dame. At least 3 of those teams are super high-powered offenses. I just don't think that either of those teams can win enough games with a bad enough defense to put them in a position to legitimately push for a college football playoff spot.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be a big struggle to see Colorado beat some of the teams like Oregon, but I look at Oregon State and Washington State. One of those games they're going to lose because of just the running. They get you out of the rhythm of what it's like to play. In a normal pace game. That's my biggest concern for Colorado going down the line, but. I do think that if the Pac-12 can beat up enough, if you get 2 losses, I mean, you almost we need a lot of help to get in with only 4 teams. So I think if that happens, then can they make a run? Yes. Will they make a run? No. I think USC has a stronger case because of Caleb Williams. But if I have to think about it, I have a follow-up question to this, but I just don't necessarily trust that they're going to be able to get there. I don't think they had the schemes. I don't think they had necessarily the talent on the defensive side to do it. But here's my follow-up question. What's the one matchup you would like to see? You're like, look at these 2 teams on paper. You're like, man, I would love to see this. They're not going to play each other, but I would love to see this matchup this year.
That's a very interesting. I mean, that'd be the most biased answer, but USC Oklahoma. I mean, I would like to see them play. Just
that would be
that rivalry. The new found rivalry because of the Lincoln Riley thing.
Yeah,
I don't know. I would like. I hope we get to see this matchup because I think these are the two best teams in college football this year, and it's Michigan and Georgia. I think I want to see because I think it would be a very good defensive game. Most people probably don't want to watch it; they want to see the offenses. But I want to see a good competitive game where both teams are having to fight tooth and nail to win that game. And I think that would be a good matchup because you got two, I think, really good defenses and two solid offenses, but maybe not the best. But have to fight tooth and nail. I don't know. It's kind of hard. This year's college football, it's just there's not a whole lot of like separation. I don't think from top to bottom, really, especially the top 15 teams.
Well, I think part of that just the new quarterbacks. Like we had a lot of guys graduate out from the big power programs last year, and so there's a little bit of uncertainty there. I think in my mind, obviously OU USC would be incredible, especially if OU won. Ugh.
Yeah.
The other one I would think of a little bit is the seeing USC play against the best defense, and a lot of people would probably say that's going to be Georgia talent wise. But I already feel like I know how that one's going to play out. Lincoln Riley's going to be a little scared and just not he's not going to go win the game, and I would trust the talent and the defense. But I would like to see that because I think they would have the offense to keep up, with a USC, but they'd have the defense to slow USC down, I would imagine.
So another, I think, interesting one would be Florida State, Colorado. Well, you got two super high-powered offenses, and like I said, I don't think we've seen the real Florida State defense. I don't think they've played anyone. That first week matchup, they played LSU, but it's week one. It's hard to really gauge how well. I think that could be a very high-scoring game too. Completely opposite of the Michigan-Georgia game where it may be
24-10.
24. 21 final score. This one could be 45. 48-45 last second field goal, something. Because both defenses probably aren't great, but they have such high-powered offenses that you can see something pretty exciting. Something like that. Two polar opposite games.
100%. Yeah,
but
100%. Well, let's ask this question. Then, is Georgia still the team to beat for you?
Yeah, until someone can beat them, they are still the team to beat. I mean, if I'm looking at it right now, I think Michigan is the number one team in the country. But Georgia, you still have to beat them. They still are the top dog because you've won the last two national championships. Until someone can beat you, you're still that team.
Yeah, and Michigan didn't make it to the championship last year.
No, I mean, you fell short. This year, I think Michigan's team is better than it was last year. I think they're more well-rounded, but you still have to show up and do this. And it'll be a tough matchup if that's, who you're playing in the playoffs, national championship, because now you've got a coach that's won 2 in a row. You've got players that have been on that team that have already won 2. Now can you, show up in the moments and get it done? But until someone beats Georgia, they're the top team.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are trying to crown someone else, though, just, with the transition of quarterback and stuff like that. But, no, it is definitely Georgia at the moment. Yeah, Georgia loses a game or two, and, they've lost – they lost the week that we recorded. We're like, oh, man, never mind.
Yeah, right. they lose to South Carolina this week.
Yeah. Ooh, man, there's no way, right? There's no way.
I don't think so.
Do you feel like that means the Nick Saban domination era is coming to a close? And by coming to a close, like we're done.
Yeah, I think so. I think the dominance of the Nick Saban Alabama is done. That's not saying I don't think that they are going to be a good team and a competitive team that could push for the playoffs. I just feel like, we saw the run from 2008 up until 2019, where they were just absolutely, everyone was terrified to play them because you knew that that's a dogfight no matter what. Whoever the quarterback was, they were, had a legitimate chance to win because their defenses were always so dominant and they always had a run game. This year is not the same, and I don't know when it will be. Simpson was supposed to be the guy this year and didn't, show it in the spring. They've got a kid coming in next year. I think his name's Julian Sayin. He's a big 5-star quarterback. Maybe that's the next step forward after, in the next year or so, but that's a couple year span. I just don't think that offensive wise, the line has played good the last 2 or 3 years. Defensive wise, especially the last 2 years, even when you had, you know, you had 5 starters get drafted on that defense last year, and the defense wasn't that good last year. And so there's some disconnect somewheres that I don't know. It may just be the fact that everyone's caught up to Nick Saban, and they're a good team, but I don't think that the dominance is going to be there anymore. And it's right now it's Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia is the legitimate one. Yeah, and I would agree. It is fact that I think the Nick Saban domination is coming to a close, and you know what they've done is absolutely incredible. And most teams are like what they, Florida was in the mid 2000s. It's like what
Mhm.
USC was in the mid 2000s. It's what Georgia is doing right now. They're really good in these spurts, and then they go away.
Yeah,
Now Nick Saban has not done that. He has been remained like ultra competitive, great recruiting, really almost since he turned that program around after about a year and a half.
yeah,
And my question is, at what point will the recruiting side catch up to maybe the domination side? Because Alabama, if they wanted to recruit, they can put their name in the hat, and everyone like, "Ooh, Alabama wants me." I at least got to listen.
yeah. And see, that's the thing though; they're getting the recruits
Hmm.
these last few years. I think it's the coaching outside of Nick Saban hasn't been what it was the prior how many years, because you look at the offensive coordinators that they would have in there, Lane Kiffin, Sarkisian, Bill O'Brien. You have big name guys that had been either head coaches in the NFL or head coaches somewhere else. Be that guy. Now
Hmm.
you got Tommy Rees in here, who you look at what he did at Notre Dame, and it was not exciting at all. And
Hmm.
then same thing with the defensive side. You always had a big name defensive coordinator that Kirby Smart, Jimbo Fisher. You got these guys that were had been on his staffs at Alabama and LSU and stuff like that. He had those coordinators. This Pete Golding's out now. He's at Ole Miss. I don't know who the defense coordinator is this year. Usually they had these big name coordinators that are there to coach these guys up, and they haven't had that the last couple of years. I think that's part of it. I think the coaching outside of Nick Saban hasn't been up to par to what it was the prior
Yeah,
15 years.
yeah. And the grind of he's probably gone through 45
Yeah.
coaches.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing. You get that, and more than likely a year that coach is gone, and so it. Luckily for him, the recruits they have stayed on
Mhm.
board with that. But yeah, that's tough to do when you go through. I mean, you look at college football, and a lot of those guys that are head coaches in these Power Five schools
Have ties.
were part. Yeah, we're had ties with Nick Saban, or we're on the staff or something at some point.
Yeah, the Virginia Maryland game. That's two Power Five schools, ACC, Big Ten, and both of them had received top assistant awards.
Yeah,
In that time, and it's like wow. I think there were three of them there. I don't think they were all three with Saban, but there were three
yeah,
top assistants. So that's just what's going to happen. So here I got a question. This wasn't on the sheet, but I am curious because right now this is a unique time where even at the beginning of your group of five, we were talking about like we didn't have a whole lot of predictions for it, but we were like, oh, I've heard good things about UTSA and I've heard good things about this, and here we are.
yeah,
We're looking at the top 25 poll, and there are zero teams in the top 25 outside of Notre Dame that aren't in a Power Five conference. And Notre Dame could be if they wanted to, just with name brand.
yeah.
The closest right now is technically going to be Tulane, and they're about number 30. And then you have Wyoming and Fresno State are right behind them. Everybody else is a Power Five school. So my question is fact or fiction? At the end of the year, there will only be one group of five team in the top 25, but not the top 15. Zero in the top 15.
I'm gonna say fiction. I just don't think that the group of five is as strong as it has been. I think that Tulane, yes, they put up a good fight against Ole Miss without Michael Pratt. Michael Pratt is a game time decision this week. How much does this injury linger throughout the season? And can they win enough to, yeah, maybe they only end up with one loss and it's Ole Miss and they end up in the top 25. Very well could happen. But you lose to, a couple, one or two teams in the, in your conference and you're automatically done. I don't think that Wyoming is really that legit. I mean, who knows? Maybe they give Texas a run for their money this week,
Hopefully
and
they do. Dude, that would be amazing.
yeah, but I just don't. I don't trust any of those teams even Fresno State. I just, yeah, I don't think that they're as strong as what they've been over the last few years. With Cincinnati and Tulane doing what they've done over the last 3 or 4 years. Even UTSA. I thought UTSA would be the team that could push for it, but it just doesn't seem like that's the case either.
Yeah, and I agree. The UTSA was the one, and Tulane with the other, with assuming a healthy Michael Pratt. And you're like, not really. And originally coming into the year, it looked like Arkansas State was going to be better. That team is absolute terrible. 3 points, 110 given up in 2 games. That's brutal. Louisiana Raging Cajuns are not very. I mean, they're okay this year. They're competitive, but they're not going to be a top 25 team. I look at this team, and it is, or the group of 5, and this is a sad state of what I feel is the result of mega conferences, right? I mean, with 16 in this league, 16 in this league, 14 in this league, that it ends up being where, and dissolving another Power 5 conference, that it's just, it's inevitable. I think it's inevitable at the end of it that that you're going to have these teams where it's just going to be the power conferences, and then you might get 1 or 2. Obviously Boise State's not as good as they used to be, but yeah, I think it's sad.
Well, yeah, you look at it. The Big 12 took the 3 really big teams that you could have considered.
UCF and BYU.
Yep. Yeah, and BYU. And SMU will be out of the gate, next year to the ACC. So, I mean, yeah, these big conferences have picked off the major, contenders for the, group of 5. And now you're left to, can Tulane sustain this type of, winning? I don't think so. UTSA, same thing. I think this, like you said, the state that we're in now in college football, we're really not going to see any of these group of 5 teams legitimately be good. Now there's one team, I don't know what they're at now, what they're ranking, where they're ranked, and record wise, but I think an interesting team, and it's a team that beat Baylor week 1. Texas State is a very interesting team with what GJ Kinney has done there. He's brought in Power 5 quarterbacks, multiple Power 5 quarterbacks to come in and be the, you got TJ Finley, who was, at Tennessee and Auburn, no, LSU and Auburn. And then you bring in Malik Hornsby, who was the backup at Arkansas, who was a big time guy. And they actually have multiple guys from University of Oklahoma on that defense too. So
yeah, that's true.
Maybe this is a team that could sneak up on some people. And I know for sure they at least will have 1 win. I don't know what they did last week or if they played last week.
UTSA.
Okay, there you go.
They played Jackson State, so that should be a win.
Yeah, but I mean, you already lost.
Looks like they should run off with, they could approach double-digit wins despite the loss. Like they could make that run with the way their schedule sets up.
Yeah, but I mean, you already lost to UTSA, so that's going to be tough. But yeah, say you go undefeated the rest of the year, maybe you could make a run at the at the top 25. I just don't think that this is the year for the group of 5, or maybe even any time in the next 5 to 10 years.
I know that's a sad fact. I mean, everyone loved Boise. That you love the team. That man, my God, it's just so cool to see them. Remember when South Florida was like number 2 in the country? Like it was wild. Yeah. You always want to have those teams, but it does look like those are gonna go away. And it's not that. I mean, these teams are still. That's what's crazy is like the conferences still have most of these teams, but when you take away some of the top ones or the bigger markets of these top ones, you're right, it's going to disappear. And it's going to be Big 12 representing. And that's why it's devastating if you're Oregon State and Wazoo, because you look at what are the chances if you guys end up merging with the Mountain West and they become the Pac-12 or whatever, it's not the same, and you're not going to get the same respect.
No, and the recruits will be way less than what they are now.
Yeah. So, all right. So we got 2 quick questions to finish it out. And this next one, it stings. It's gross. I had a hard time wearing orange yesterday. Ugh. Is Texas a legitimate chance?
So you own orange? I don't own anything.
I got a neon orange hoodie. It's just blank. It's a Adidas hoodie. My wife got it for me, and I felt real weird wearing it. And my uncle is a huge Cowboys fan, loves OSU. And so is my dad. Took a picture of me in it yesterday. I said, I need you to not Photoshop anything in that. I feel weird enough wearing this out right now, especially when I was in the Tulsa area, because that's OSU country, I think. So
Yeah.
we were in the smaller group here as OU fans, but I always say we like winning. So
Yeah. No, I won't own orange at all.
yeah,
Sorry.
it felt weird, but
Yeah.
either way, is Texas a legit, like, fact or fiction? They're a legit national championship contender.
I'm still gonna go fiction until they can prove it to me throughout the whole season. I just don't. I don't trust Quinn Ewers. I know he played good against Texas. I mean Alabama. He played good against Alabama, but then you look what he did against Rice the week before, and it wasn't that spectacular. And I think that there's a lot of questions on this team when it comes to the run game. The run game hasn't been anywhere close to what you would expect a Texas run game. Yeah, you got two really good young running backs, but that offensive line hasn't been great. And I think that we're going to see Texas come back a little bit more realistic to what we expect. And they're going to lose one or two of these games that everyone expect them to win and lose. Like next week, you got Baylor. I could very well, and it's at Baylor, very well see them losing that game because it's Texas. I'm not going to be convinced until they, at the end of the season, if they have one or two one loss, or whatever, undefeated going into the Big 12 championship game. I just don't think that this team. I think they're getting way overhyped right now because of the Alabama win. Yeah, it's a big win for them, but this is not the same Alabama that we're
It's
used
not,
to.
yeah. And two of those turnovers were absolutely terrible throws that I just can't get out of my head. But yeah, I'm gonna say it's fiction that they're a legitimate contender right now. I just until I see it consistently, until I see them win the Big 12 undefeated, one loss, really have a legitimate chance and win the championship game itself, the Big 12 championship game, then I can't, because we've literally heard people say they're back. Remember,
Yeah.
like, we're back, and then they just weren't. So, and we haven't seen Sark be like that dominant, consistent head coach that gets the whole thing the whole time. And I think that's the hardest part, to put your faith in it after one game. That's just one game. So, did we say it last year when they beat a quarterback-less Oklahoma team? No.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Those two turnovers were gift wrapped turnovers. Those don't happen. There's a chance they lose that game.
Yeah.
And against better quarterback play, against better quarterback play, they probably lose that game. And that's what I think is the big thing. Jalen Daniels, Kansas quarterback, is better than Jalen Milroe from Alabama. So you've got a bigger, competition there. Walker Howard is probably a better quarterback than Jalen Milroe right now. That's another big competition right there.
Yeah.
Dylan Gabriel is better than Jalen Milroe. That's, you're playing better competition at quarterback going forward than what you did against Alabama, which is crazy to say. But I think it's going to be tougher for them going forward, especially being in the Big 12. Conference play is different than non-conference. The pressure is even more because you lose one conference game, that could potentially be it for you, or two conference games. There goes your chance at the conference championship game. So the pressure's more, and it'll be more for Quinn Ewers going forward, because now everyone's going to expect that Quinn Ewers every game. And
as it should.
When it gets down to it, can he do what he did? I just don't think he can.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. So let's look forward a little bit. So some predictions of the game, not predictions, but I got some storylines I'm going to throw out there. You have this is in the notes, so I'm just going to throw them at you. So this is going to be matchups on the last week of September the 30th. So as we release this podcast that's been pre-recorded, these are the matchups that are coming up. So note there are any crazy injuries. Oops. If someone goes on a losing streak, oops. But we have USC Colorado. Here's my question. Fact, the over-under for this game will be over 110. We'll say 110. 120, it felt like it was a little aggressive.
I'll say fiction. I'm going to say closer to the 80, just because we always expect these games with these high-powered offenses with not good defenses to to be like these absolute shootouts, and then they're not.
Yeah.
They're still high power, high scoring
I
games.
don't
So
know.
I'm gonna
These
say
defenses are so bad, dude. Come on. How are they
it's
going to
very
stop each
true.
other?
Very true. I mean, I'm gonna say it's gonna be closer to the 84, 85 mark.
Okay. All right. I'm going to say I would probably take the under because it's a massive number. I put 110, but I do think it's going to push 100. I think it's going to
It,
45, 55, something crazy like that. It's in Colorado. Do you know what the ticket prices are right now?
oh, I can't imagine. I'm sure they're
350 plus.
gosh.
Absolutely insane. And here's the thing, that's probably going to be another college game day.
Yeah, probably.
That weekend has some really good matchups, but that one right there that's the biggest one, I think, overall. Then you do have LSU Ole Miss that game. Ole Miss wins it at home over LSU. Fact or fiction?
I'm gonna say fiction. I still believe in this LSU team. I think it was a bad week one. I think that we'll start figuring some things out, especially defensive wise, and hopefully the playmakers on the outside can make the catches that Daniels make. They dropped two wide open passes. One was a touchdown. The other one would have put them in, great position for a touchdown going into the fourth quarter. May have been the complete, game changer of that game, because the next play Daniels throws that interception, and it was basically all she wrote. So I just think that we saw a lot of what Ole Miss is last week against, or a couple weeks ago against Tulane,
Mhm.
against a Mike Prattless team. I think that's a lot of what we'll see the rest of this year, and I'm not too high on Ole Miss. I think LSU should win that game.
Okay. No, I agree. If Jackson Dart plays perfect and it's at home, that could help. But he's got
Mm-hmm.
to play really, really well. So here's which team puts up a bigger fight in this same weekend. Georgia and Michigan are on the road. Georgia against Auburn and Michigan against Nebraska. This is with the caveat that Nebraska is going to have a different starting quarterback. It's not going to be Sims. There's no way.
Gosh, that's tough because I think both teams are not good. So you got Georgia on the road against Auburn and Michigan on the road against Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go Nebraska. I
Nebraska.
think the defense. I think the defense is better, and it can maybe slow down JJ McCarthy in that offense a little bit.
Yeah.
Offensive wise, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. If Jeff Sims is that quarterback going forward the rest of the year, you're looking for a team that can maybe score 10 points, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's not looking good if he is. All right. How
Yeah.
about this? Kansas upsets Texas at Texas. Fact or fiction?
Fact.
You say fact? Oh man, let's go. Assuming
This
Jalen
is
Daniels plays, right? There's no weird injuries.
yeah. This is a game that I marked on the schedule when we talked about our predictions at the beginning of the year. That I said this is a defining game for Kansas to potentially be that surprise team that can make maybe a run at the Big 12 championship game. And I think that if, say, maybe Texas goes in and they have a tough, I mean, because I shouldn't say should have, it will be a tough fight against Baylor, just because that's the type of teams that Dave Aranda builds, is these tough, hard-nosed defenses, no matter what they have offensive wise, are going to beat you up, play in, play out. And maybe, yeah, Texas comes away with that win, but it's a hard, tough fought win. And they're just a little beat up, maybe going into that game, not like, oh, Quinn Ewers isn't playing or whatever, but just kind of bumps and bruises, the ache of the game. And Jalen Daniels comes in and just goes off on them.
Wow, there you go. That would be incredible. And 2 years in a row they lost. They lost to Kansas. You're like, oh yeah, did you?
Yeah, Jalen Daniels is an absolute difference
Mm-hmm.
maker when it comes to the game. You see the difference from week one when they didn't have Jalen Daniels and they barely squeaked out that win, to last week when they had Jalen Daniels and they just blow the doors off. They they are a different team when he's on the field, and I think he's the best quarterback in this conference, even better than Dylan Gabriel and Quinn Ewers. I think he's the best quarterback in this conference. Like, he plays for Kansas. He just doesn't get the same, publicity as the other guys because it's Kansas.
Yeah, I think that's 100% accurate. Yeah, but Kansas is on the rise right now. I mean,
Yeah.
they're renovating their stadium like many colleges are right now. They're renovating their stadium. It's going to look great in a couple of years, and maybe this is on the up. Maybe they can find a way to make the Big 12 their conference. I don't know. It's gonna be hard with Colorado coming in.
They have to find a way to keep Lance Leipold and Lawrence. If they can keep Lance Leipold there, I think they have a legitimate chance to maybe run this conference along with Colorado the next few years. Because
wow.
You
said
a
that
crazy
5
thing.
years ago. It was like, what is he talking about?
Lance Leipold just knows how to build a program. He's done it everywhere he's gone, and I don't think Kansas could be. I think Kansas is on that same path. I like what he's done. I like the culture that he's brought to that team, and I'm a big Lance Leipold fan, and I like what he's done. And if he can find him another quarterback after Jalen Daniels leaves that can come in and run his offense and be a lot like he is, it's going to be, especially with the weaker Big 12.
That's true. Someone's going to have to take charge of it. And right now it looks like it's going to be Coach Prime, but let's go. Let's have some fresh faces to take it over. And look, Kansas is a nice dark horse team. Well, guys, that's everything. That was the podcast episode this week. We really, really appreciate y'all tuning in with us, whether it is on the podcast that you download on your phone. Thank you very much. Or you tuned in on YouTube. Also, thank you very much. We appreciate it. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, because with the W podcast, you just got to listen.
Just got to listen.
Yeah. But till then, we will be back at a regular time next week, 6:30 next Monday. Hope to see you all there. See ya.
See ya.